We're making progress. Obviously, it's not going as quickly as originally planned. The key thing to remember is we have not yet officially received the ship from the contractor. At present, the vessel is legally and in fact owned by Seaspan Shipyards. So we are limited in our ability to discuss what's going on. You know, Frank has made it very clear to us that you know, there's a battle for public opinion out there, and that we're losing. The other side of that battle has unfettered right to speak about whatever they choose to speak. We are fettered. We have a contract with Seaspan for the building of the ship. It's Seaspan's ship, and that contract has confidentiality provisions in it, normal in any commercial contract, that limit our right to speak. We can't speak about somebody else's vessel. That's what it comes down to. However, we're moving along, and as we get closer to the goals, we're able to get the ability to speak. We get an agreement with Seaspan about what we can and cannot say. So where we are today. Firstly, I can say that the ship has met or exceeded all of its design specifications and parameters. And that includes speed, load carrying ability, seakeeping capability, and fuel consumption. So it has met all of our requirements on that, all of the specifications in the contract. We are able to meet our speed and exceed the target speeds on one engine, which is an engine of approximately 490 horsepower. We do not use two engines ever for propulsion. In fact, the ship is designed such that two engines cannot be used simultaneously, and that is so we have completely independent and redundant propulsion. So that's a design parameter. So it meets all targets on one engine of 490, and just by way of interest, the Quinessa has four engines of 425 horsepower. So we can see that the cable ferry is able to meet its target speeds with much less power as predicted. The fuel consumption, we're still calculating. As you know, we've done some runs in a loaded condition. You see those swimming pools on the deck down there. Those swimming pools simulated the load of a full deck of traffic. The ship has now been proven to carry exactly what the Quinessa can carry. In fact, it can carry a little more in terms of net weight, but it will at least carry what the Quinessa can carry. It met its full speed targets at that load, and the fuel consumption is better than expected at that load. So things are starting to fall into place. There are glitches on the ship still. There are some technical glitches which are normal for any new ship. Any new ship takes time to shake down, and the cable ferry is no different. So there are some leaking pipes, and then there's some malfunctioning electrical circuits and things like that, all of which Seaspan is required to fix before BC Ferries accepts the vessel. So that's what's taking the time right now, is to work through the snag sheet on the ship and systematically correct all of those little things. So they're making progress. We're optimistic that Seaspan will be in a position to offer the ship for acceptance in the near future. I'm sorry I can't be much more specific than that, but it's soon. It's soon. Once we go through that process of acceptance, then BC Ferries, we have possession of the ship, and we can start to get in there and start to really do our work. We've got to go through training. We have to go through Transport Canada crew size calculations. We have to develop operational procedures. Well, we've developed the procedures. Now we've got to put them in place, and we've got to start running the ship and testing those procedures. Remember, all our procedures are on paper right now. We had to get out and say, hey, does this actually work? So we have to what we call work up the ship and work up the procedures. That typically we're anticipating will take us a month or so after we get the ship. And then at that point, we'll be prepared to move into a process of what we call soft sailing, which is where, without an official introduction into service, we'll start to put some live traffic on there and test our procedures. We'll be able to be more definitive on dates as we start to get more definition from Seaspan, is when we're going to get our actual hands on the vessel. As part of the process, when we get when we get possession of the ship, it's our intention to invite the FAC to come on board and to have a look around the ship and show you it in an operational state, so that you can go to the residents of the islands and say, hey, we've been there, seen it. This is what I know. So more on that in due course. Again, it all turns on that date from CSPAN. The cables are performing well. The cover is not failing on the cable. You will see shards of the cover in the pits over there at Buckley, mostly driven by the need to remove the cover so the cable stoppers can grip the cable. I've personally been on the ship, I've been back and forth watching the cables, and the cable cover is not failing in mid-span. But even if it does, that does not indicate cable failure. The cover is not required for the operation of the system. In fact, the cover is not there as corrosion prevention either. Surface rust on the cable does not constitute a defect. It is steel and salt water. It is going to rust, and the cables are designed to accept surface rust. That blue cover that you see is actually not, the cover is just the outward visible sign of it. That blue polypropylene substance is impregnated all the way through the cable, and its purpose is actually to reduce internal friction between the strands as the cable on a microscopic level kind of contracts and expands due to the loads. And so it's there for an internal purpose. The external appearance of the blue cover is irrelevant to cable performance. I'll also say that shortly you'll hear from us again after the vessel is handed over to us. We will be changing one cable as a practice session to finalize our procedures on how to do a cable change. Because once the ship is in service, our target is to be able to change a cable overnight so that there is no disruption, to the service to the community. So that's the technical criteria for cable change. But like anything to your comment, we've installed 3 cables and that went well, but we have not done an end-to-end cable change. We intend to do that before the ship comes into service, so we can again refine our procedures. So I just want you to know, when you see us out there changing a cable, it's not that the cable, there's anything wrong with the cable. We're practicing so that when we're in service, we can make sure we do it right, we do it efficiently, and we don't disadvantage or inconvenience the community. I have a list of notes I made in anticipation of this topic. Let me just quickly check and see if I missed anything. Did I get them all?
I think you got them all.
Okay.
Both the
You pressed all the concerns I've heard expressed, but, okay.
So let's go for questions.
That's something else.
Let's
But
dive in.
I'm just going to suggest something that's entirely up to you guys, but if you want to sort of have a voice in all the controversy around this, it would be good if you put something together saying exactly what you've said and submit it to the local papers.
Yeah. We were aware of the article in the local, the Island Tides, I guess, last week. We didn't make the cutoff to get in there, but I think Darren's our communications manager, but we're anticipating just that for Island Tides next week. The key thing is we're not in a rush to put the ship in service. We have the Quinitza. The Quinitza is here for the express purpose, as we've stated right from the very beginning. The Quinitza is here to provide seamless, uninterrupted service to the island while the cable ferry is being built and introduced. And that's exactly what we're doing. We've committed to the islands that she will stay, and she is staying. She will stay for some period of time after the cable ferry is fully in service until the level of confidence is where everybody wants it to be. So we're not in a rush. We're not rushing this. We're not going to try and come into service before BC Ferries is fully convinced that the system is capable of delivering the level of service that we presently have with the Peninsula. That's been our commitment from the beginning, and remains our commitment today.
How would you rate the risk of the cable ferry not coming in service?
0. That ship will be in service shortly. The ship is not going back to the shipyard. I know there's been some discussion about that. There's no need to send it back to the shipyard. Although I should say, that in a normal ship construction process, every ship goes back to the shipyard after trials. You build it, you trial it, you have snags, you go back to the shipyard, you fix it, and you hand it over. Had she needed to go back to Vancouver shipyards, that would be a completely typical procedure. In this case, what we're doing is where the atypical part of this is that we try to fix everything before leaving the yard, but knowing that that's never possible, you got to get it on the cables to fully trial it. We get it on the cables, some snags have turned up, we're fixing those without going back to the yard. And I will say that C-SPAN is making an extraordinary effort to cure some of these snags up here in the field, which would normally, in the normal course of business, which would be done back in their facilities. So they've stepped up to do this in a field sense so that we don't need to relocate the ship back there. Or they don't need to relocate the ship. So yeah, it's not going back to the yard, and it will be in service shortly.
Mark, can I ask you a question? How close can a vessel pass behind or in front of the cable ferry when it's going across?
It's not supposed to do that, it's not permitted to do that, and if they are on the route, while the cable ferry is in motion, the other vessel is in violation of marine collision regulations.
So, in other words, while that vessel's going across, you cannot cross anywhere.
Those are the rules. Well, I think I'm... And these are not new rules for BC Ferries and our cable ferry. These are rules for cable ferries which existed for probably decades.
And that's something that most public voters do not know.
Yeah, somehow it's grown out there that that somehow, the onus is on BC Ferries to make sure that ships don't hit the cable or boats don't hit the cables. In fact, in law and in marine navigation, it's exactly the opposite. Collision regulations require all vessels, including sailboats under sail, to stay away from a cable ferry route when the vessel is in motion. It is a no-go zone, and they must stay away. So we're going to actually do some public education on this, but it won't be BC Ferries saying, here's what we're doing to keep you away. We're going to say, it will be educational on the lines of, don't forget to read the regulations so you as a mariner understand your obligation to stay out of our way. That's the way.
It should be put into the small boating.
Yeah, and we recognize that recreational boaters are the ones who are professional mariners. They already know this, but it's the recreational boaters that are our greatest concern.
That's good.
Yeah, an article of their yachting would probably do it. An article of their yachting.
And if we cast our minds back, before, when we were back in the conceptual stage of this project, we consulted Lively on this, and we talked to NAV Waters Canada. What's their real name? Navigable Waters Protection. We talked to the BC Association of Yacht Clubs. We went to all of these kinds of places to decide, because we had to apply for the right to operate cable ferry crossing. And all the regulatory bodies have given us the right, which is why the regulations presently in force put the onus on boaters to stay clear. So we did talk to the rec boating associations at the time, made them aware, there were no objections from them. But you're quite right, is we need to go back now and engage in a little bit of public education and reminding here that the regulations apply to rec boaters just like they do to professional mariners, and they have an obligation to stay clear.
I think particularly sail boats, that there are a lot of them that come up and down during the summer months and into, May through to October. Those would be the ones that I would worry about.
Yeah, we're going to take one other step there are traffic lights now. The regulations require us to have red and green lights at each end of the route, and that's the only way mariners know. When the lights at the terminal are red, it means the cable ferry is in motion, and mariners must not cross. That's what I mean. Now, the lights that we put up there meet the regulation, but when we're looking at them, these are too small. So we're now looking at making much more obvious lighting at each end, just as a practical matter for boaters, so that they can spot them. So as I say, They conform to the regs right now, they look too small to us, we're gonna try to do something much more visible.
Laura, go ahead. Okay, I just wanted to mention that in terms of media, I don't think everyone reads Island Times, and we have local media, the Grapevine, which goes to both islands, and then we each have a monthly paper. Very inexpensive,
Darren's the media
Next to
expert
nothing.
here.
Actually,
And-
marketing, I didn't call that, and Mark alluded to the public communication part that we're gonna do.
Yeah.
They've already got that queued up. We only talked about ties because there was an article
Yeah.
that somebody wrote.
I know.
We've actually have put in a letter to the editor to clarify it to that.
Good, but don't, like, people, especially on DENMAN, I think on Hornby, the Grapevine isn't as, but, people see that as sort of us, like our media, and so I think it's a really good way to reach people,
Yeah.
and, you know, like I would think, and the more the better, like what you
They
told us
need
today
to
was a
know
lot of
this, right?
information, and I like, to
Yeah.
see- I'm happy to pass that on, but I think it has a lot more weight, coming from BC Ferries, and it's relationship building on communications, number one for all relationships.
They've got paid communications as part of this boating regulations education for, as well for the record, the Echo, because
Okay.
the commercial
Oh, that's true.
marine traffic
But I'm
is also,
thinking that if-
as well as the Grapevine, as well as,
Yeah. I was thinking of the update, like what you told us, all that information that I tried to write down, and I'll certainly pass on. I can write it up and put it in the Grapevine, but I think it would be much better if that came from
And
BC
that in fact
Ferries.
is our plan.
That's
We
great.
wanted to bring it here first, you know,
Okay.
in respect for your positions in the community
And
and
to
the-
your
and the
questions.
work that
Yeah.
you do with us to get these messages out. We wanted to make sure you were armed with this information. And shortly, you know, because we've only recently really received the agreement of C-SPAN that we can talk in this level of detail. Now that we have that, we can talk to you, and our next step is to go public.
yep,
I think Kate called in a job.
I've got a few. One is about the cable, and rumor on Hornby says that the way the cable is more than anticipated, and so you can reach the speed that you want to, but not till you're almost all the way across. Is there any fact to that?
That's not true.
Okay. Also, how far down does the cable hang when the boat is traveling and when the boat is not traveling? And that's in relation to the marine traffic. People are
Yeah.
curious about that.
I don't have exact meters. I mean, I suppose it could be calculated, but I mean, the cable lays on the bottom for most of the route, but you know, there's a deep portion, I think it's relatively closer to Denman than it is to the Buckley side. There's a deep trench there, and the cable doesn't touch the bottom there, it kind of hangs in a curve, you know. That's when the ferry is in the terminals, right? So the cable is largely flat on the bottom. How many meters off the end of the ship, Al, do you have?
When it's in the dock,
When it's in the dock, how many meters off the end of the
less
ship?
than 100 meters.
So we've been discussing, I don't know if the decision has been taken yet, about buoying, putting buoys sort of at the ends of the terminals there to give some guidance to mariners about don't come closer than this. We can't just throw buoys in the water wherever we feel like, though. That's again, we go back to navigable waters, and we got to work through this Coast Guard regs. We got to get, and you know, they control the navigation marks that even private companies and private individuals put out. So we worked through that, but you know, we've been having some internal discussion about the wisdom of having buoys out there. So maybe it's 100 meters off the end of the berth. Even when the ship is docked and the lights are green, this should be an exclusion zone. This is common in our other terminals. If you come into you know, places like Swartz Bay, there's definitely exclusion zones around our operations, which are granted to us by regulation. Even, I'll just use I'm getting dangerously on the captain ground here, Al, so you kick me if I get this wrong. But even a self-propelled free-running vessel like the Quinitza, in certain phases of its voyage, has the right-of-way over everything. You get in around terminals, it's maneuvering, it's known as a vessel restricted in its ability to maneuver, or it's a maneuvering exclusion zone. Wreck boaters simply should not be in there, whether it's a cable ferry, a free-running ferry, or whatever. You should not be in there, and are permitted in that zone by regulation. And Al can probably say it much better than I do.
I wanted to ask Al about fog, darkness and fog, and the lights are therefore useless. And
Well, not in darkness, lights are.
no, I mean, I'm thinking of the
weather.
Well, they're not going to optimize it.
Well, this morning we were looking actually at the green light there, and it's pretty, on the DENMAN side, it's really bright, and we're actually increasing it. Buckley, we're gonna work on it a bit because there's more backlight on it. Fog, the ship will be, it'll sound the applicable systems like any other, right? And they will give security calls in Channel 16, so that anybody that's traveling, in the fog, we don't expect as many pleasure boaters as we do the others. And we will be speaking to the waster people to make sure that their operators are aware of what the limitations of the cable are.
Frank, can I?
Jack, got a comment.
Because I have more, so should I wait?
No.
Yeah, so when it's in dock, it's on the ground. When it's traveling, is that the 100 meters that it's hanging in?
No, it's a bit more than that.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is once, as Mark's comments, once when the cable ferry becomes ours, then we're going to try and map out actually where the cable is.
Okay.
So that'll be for our understanding as well, for the operator's understanding. They need to know how far ahead, that where they may have to stop the ferry.
And it changes, when the machinery is pulling on the cable, of course the cable is going to be more taut. When you get past mid-span, and it's not exactly mid-span because it depends on how much cable is hanging off the back of the ship. The cables actually start to drive the vessel after you get past a certain point, because the weight of the cable behind coming off the shivs provides a forward push on it. And the cable ferry is actually in braking mode for a good 1/3 of the crossing as it's approaching the terminal. In which case the cables ahead of you may be slacker than the cables behind you. So it's not a simple algorithm, if you will, and it depends on the driver and when he chooses to begin braking, the speed of approach is low. That's why the rules say when it's in motion, you are not permitted to cross. There is, in our view, there is no safe way to cross that path when the ferry is in motion. There's no way we will ever sanction it, nor can we, because again, it's federal rules. It's not BC Ferries rules. These are federal regulations, and nobody should be in there while the ferry is in motion.
The other one was about friction and debris coming on the cable, both, mostly when it's coming back and around the wheel. Are there concerns about BAYNES?
We had concerns and we designed for them, and I would have to say we're pleasantly surprised at how little debris we're getting. In fact, we have a cable cleaning system on the front end of the ship. I believe we may be the only cable ferry in Canada, maybe the world, that has a cable cleaning system in anticipation of this. And the guys are, we're running it to test it, but the guys saying it's absolutely superfluous, right? It's not doing it. The cables are coming up very clean, cleaner than we expected. So very, very pleasantly surprised about that.
And travel and turnaround time? Travel and turnaround time, because that was the other.
Yeah, it's the dock-to-dock time is exceeding our expectation, or it's, how do I say, it's better than anticipated. It's faster than anticipated. But the other thing to remember about this is that comparing it to the Quinitza really won't do you much good, because the terminals are very different. This was designed as an integrated system, so it's not just the cable ferry versus Quinitza. It is cable ferry plus 2 docks plus holding compounds equals Quinitza plus old docks plus former compound design. That's the efficiency you need to look at. So it is what we call the cycle time, the time from a car sitting in the holding compound over and back, if you will, in the old system versus the new. So Quinitza's faster. She's always going to be faster. We knew she was going to be faster. We did not design the cable ferry to be as fast as the Quinitza, because it's simply not necessary. The cable ferry has a shorter distance to traverse. It has straight on loading and unloading. It has traffic lights to guide the people. It has a double wide ramp, which the Quinitza does not, and the Quinitza's berths do not. Buckley, yes, DENMAN West, no. The sight lines are much improved. The tie-up arrangements for the cable ferry and then securing arrangements are different than they are on the Quinitza, so that the cycle time between the time you hit the wing walls till the time the traffic starts to move is different. The way the foot passengers clear the traffic path is different on the cable ferry. So there's a range of things which are different here. So the focus on speed, while a natural one, is actually not the best determinant of travel time.
It would be really good to include that in your article.
Okay.
But the more information that the community, that I don't know about down in Upper Hornby, the more accurate information that is out there from BC Ferries, the better.
It's been
speculation just.
It's been frustrating for us too. You know, we kind of feel like, you know, we're a little bit of a prize fighter, and we're standing in the ring and we can't put our fists up and we're taking the blows like this. But at the end of the day, we're big bad guys and we can take it. You know, it's easy to. For our critics to speak, we have to respect the contractual obligations. But what makes it easy to take is our confidence that this is going to work out, and when it goes into service, we feel very sure that you're going to look at it and say, I wonder what all the fuss was about.
Well, we're the fighters too. We live on the island and we have had nothing.
I know.
So if you felt like you're out there getting it, we actually have it.
I get it. And our frontline crews, our terminal staff, they're taking it on the chin and bearing up very well, I think. So it's been tough for everybody, and we are not unaware or insensitive to your role in this. We know it's been tough for you to see. I've been phoning Frank when possible to give him what I can, but we've been extremely limited. Even within the company, our own terminal staff, we've been able to say very little to them for the same sort of contractual reasons.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I heard, what I heard is, of what you're able to say anyways, that the most criteria is being met. You mentioned some leaking pipes and electronics, which are essentially, I understand, perhaps causing the delay in putting in service. Based on this, are you maintaining your projections in terms of operational cost savings?
Absolutely. The last remaining unknown on that is crew size. Crew size has always been a major variable in this project. If you go right back to our initial public meetings, must be 4 years ago now, we had a lot of questions about crew size. So you could say half of the projected savings on this project come from labor costs. And when we did some sensitivity analysis on the returns, the financial returns on the project, and we could find that we could actually put in the cable ferry and run it with exactly the same crew size as the Quinitza, and it would still give us a financial return making it worth doing. Right now, we know we're going to be below the Quinitza crew size. Exactly how far below Quinitza's crew size is still in the hands of Transport Canada. We certainly have our opinion. We don't yet know what their opinion is. What happens next is after we take possession of the ship and we work out our operational procedures around normal ops, evacuation, fire, and post-abandonment. There's the 4 phases. Then Transport Canada sends their inspectors on board and they watch the procedures we have developed. So we're responsible for the procedures, and then TC comes in, audits those. And then they stand back and say, based on what you're showing me here, I either agree that you can do it with your crew size BC Ferries, well, let me back up. We run those procedures with our proposed crew size. And if they like the procedures and everything's going well, then they will sort of ratify or approve our proposed crew size. If they think something needs to be changed or improved, they'll usually make a recommendation. I think you need another crew member in this particular part of the procedure for this purpose. And we would then have to go away, build that recommendation into our procedures, and run the trials again for TC to come along and say, yeah, and then say, okay, yeah, I like that, and that's your crew size. So there's a couple of steps to go through on that. Al, have I missed anything?
No, we have been meeting with, there's been a team that is involved with Cable Ferry and had a meeting with Transport Canada. So we have built a relationship with them, so we're slowly working.
The whole
business case to do it was predicated, as Mark says, on labor cost savings, fuel savings, repair and maintenance savings, so those are total life cycle costs, and then also capital savings as well.
Yeah.
It's a long-term problem.
And you're maintaining, so far so good other than the labor.
So you're on budget with the capital costs at this point?
Yes, absolutely.
And we are required to report out to the commissioner on various facets, that's one of them as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Cable?
Just a comment about your notes. Do the notes say that during soft service, the service will be complimentary? Or is C-SPAN going to collect the revenue for this?
CSAN, before we do any soft service, C-SPAN will be out of the picture. They're a builder, they have nothing to do with operations. So the ship will have to be handed over to us before it goes into service. Either soft or hard, whatever you want to call it.
Thank you. Move on to the Buckley Bay